Good evening, friends. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your channel, Gnosis, Arizona. My name is Rick Santana, and I will be your designated instructor for tonight. Let's focus our attention tonight on where is it that our light has not reached yet. Where is it that our psychological efforts have not expanded themselves into, and where is that we have plenty to discover? For us to be able to do this, I think that we have a good opportunity here in front of us to embrace the principle of correspondence. For those of you familiar with the Hermetic principles, you have already heard that the principle of correspondence is that one that states that what happens above is what happens below. As above, so below. As above, so below. Looking at our psyche from that perspective, there is something that we can clearly infer. And that is, when we observe the moon as a satellite of the earth, the moon has two distinct aspects. One side that we can see constantly, evidently present right there for us. And there's another side that is hidden for us. A side that we know that exists, but that we have not peeked into yet from a psychological perspective. In that very same way, we all have an aspect that we have never seen. This specific side of us is where we find all of the causes of our mistakes. And our consciousness, as a source of light, must penetrate into this space so that we can illuminate this side of our psychological. Today we live in a very small fraction of our consciousness. Some people may have ventured and said that we have 10% of the brain in use. Some people say we have 3% of our brain in use. Other people have equated the usage capacity of the brain into that of the use of the consciousness. And so some will say we have 3% of our consciousness aware or awake, or perhaps even less than that. So we live in a small fraction of our consciousness, and in this small space of consciousness that we can still depend what we find ourselves is seeing, that we are conditioned by a self-defined portrait that we have created about our own selves. So when the consciousness is empowered and it can illuminate that false portrait, that false image, that false definition that we have created about ourselves, that image will disintegrate. The light of the consciousness will be so strong that the fragility of that image will succumb before the intensity of the consciousness itself. And it is then that we will be able to start relating correctly, adequately to ourselves and to others. But because we have not illuminated that dark side of our psyche with our consciousness, we continue making the same mistakes. We continue projecting our insecurities, our fears, our resentments, our judgments, our jealousies against everyone around us, regardless of who they are. We will project our defects upon the people that we love the most, as easy as we will project our own defects into the great masters who walk the face of the earth. So when we are envious, we end up seeing other people as envious. When we are envious, we suspect that other people are behaving in ways that will suggest envy. And the same thing happens with lust. When we are lustful, we will see other people as lustful. When we are lazy, we will see some actions in others and we will immediately project that laziness, not clearly understanding what is it that we are perceiving, not even questioning what we are perceiving, and we will issue a judgment of laziness into others. And we also suffer from something that is known as mechanical antipathy. Mechanical antipathy is a mechanical phenomenon that is triggered by the ego itself. These are the instances where we see someone, we do not know who they are, we do not know what they do, we do not know what they like, we don't even know their name. But we will notice some aspects of them, whether they are physical aspects or the way that they behave in whatever is their idiosyncrasy. And based on what we see, we will immediately dislike them. We will say, oh, I don't like that person. If we were to ask why, likely we will not know. We would just say, in a way that is sincere, I don't even know why, but I just don't. All I know is that I don't like them. This is mechanical antipathy. And the phenomenon that is taking place there is that there is a defect that exists in us that we have not seen, that we perhaps have pushed so deep into our subconsciousness that we are no longer aware of the existence of that defect. And because of that, we don't see it. But the brain recognizes it immediately as it becomes triggered. And not knowing where it's coming from, we assign that defect to that particular character, to that particular person, and we say, I don't know who you are, but I just know that I don't like you. That is mechanical antipathy. These defects that we push deep into our subconsciousness, these defects that exist within that side of us that we are not totally familiar, well, these are all defects that exist within the dark side of our psychological moon. But there is something that we can do. Self-discovery will show us how much better we would be able to walk the path of life. If we have a poor relationship with ourselves, if we have a poor relationship with our spouse, with our significant other, or if we have a poor relationship with our children, with our family, with our community, with the people in our neighborhood, and as we keep growing, you get the picture. Those poor relationships that we experience towards others are a direct relationship, the poor relationship that we have with ourselves. We will find ourselves protesting because other people are not doing things that we expect, because they will not satisfy our expectations, because they cannot do things in ways that will satisfy us. But as we look within, it is so common to find that these same things that we are protesting about from others are things that we constantly do ourselves. We may not do them in the way that we perceive them. Many times we just do them in ways that are even more subtle. We do them at the level of the mind. We do them at the level of the emotion. Sometimes we do them in ways that are discreet and hidden so that others don't even recognize them. Every time that we observe ourselves, we start finding in us all of those things that we are constantly criticizing in other people, that we are constantly judging in others, that we are constantly accusing in others. So there is value behind us illuminating this hidden side. Because when we bring the light of the consciousness into this dark side of our psychological moon, we start changing, and we end up changing in our totality. We stop censoring others. We stop criticizing others. We become tolerant, compassionate, because when we see it and we are ready to judge others, at that moment, the consciousness immediately rings that little bell of attention inside of us. The voice of the consciousness will whisper, and we will see our defect right then and there. And the greatest value behind this is that seeing all of this stuff that exists within the dark side of our psychological moon opens the door so that we can learn to receive with gratitude the wrongdoings of other people. So that we can exercise those values of the heart and offer kindness and compassion, even at those moments when others are judging us or criticizing us or slandering us. We must learn to receive with gratitude the wrongs of others. But this requires a self-observation. And self-observation is a fairly easy thing to do, but it requires of consistency and it requires of a little discipline. For us to apply that discipline, for us to apply that consistency, we must bring into play our willpower. And willpower is the one force that will move us forward into superior, higher levels of being. These efforts that we do make up something that is known as sacrifice. Much has been said about sacrifice. And even though we will not go deep into this concept of sacrifice, suffice it to say that when we invest of our creative power in this effort of self-observation that is a sacrifice, when we are moved by the light of that inner Christ that exists within each and every one of us, something magical happens. Because every effort, every sacrifice that we make, seeing ourselves, refraining the inferior reaction of those inferior aspects of our psyche. There are a series of psychological and cosmic mechanisms that come into play that enable for the conversion, the transmutation, the transformation of that sacrifice into a spiritual energy that helps us rise into superior levels of the being. The more we do this, the more of the light of the consciousness becomes manifest. The stronger is the manifestation of the inner Christ within each and every one of us. And for us to crystallize then this cosmic force of the Christ, that is a force of creation, that is a force of intelligence within the fabric and the essence of creation, we should embrace then a cosmic law that would help us move in that direction. And that is the cosmic law of the Holy Three. This law of three is known as the Holy Triamashikamno. And the law of three says that the number three always creates. So there are three factors that we can use, that we can invest as we are moving forward in this direction. These are the holy affirmation, the holy negation, and the holy conciliation. The holy negation is that we must learn to receive with gratitude the wrongs of others. That negation is intimately related with our ability to refrain the inferior thought, to refrain from crystallizing an inferior emotion. We must refrain from setting loose our tongue and our mouth, saying things, protesting, complaining in circumstances that we have contributed to create and crystallize for our own selves. So self-observation and this exercise of the holy negation, of that exercise of refraining, is going to lead us into better relationships. Our anger, our envy, our pride, our laziness, our jealousies, etc. All of them will become immediately evident the moment that, as inferior reactions, the moment that they are ready to come out to the light. And in addition to that, when we see it in others and we dislike it, we will immediately know that what we're seeing there is a reflection of our own behaviors, of the same defects that exist within the dark side of our psychological moon. Let's look at an example. I mean, there may be somebody, let's say an honest man, that somebody may call a coward. Oh, that may be taken as a tremendous offense. You're calling me a coward. How dare you? I am. This is the reaction. These violent reactions take place because there has been no self-observation. But when we go through the exercise of seeing, how many times have we had the opportunity to have a crucial conversation and we have not because we're afraid? How many times has there been a need to speak up for others and we haven't because we have been afraid? How many times have we allowed injustice to take place and we have remained there as bystanders, complete witnesses, now accessories of the injustice, and we have not done anything because we were just too cold on our feet? This is what self-observation does. If we eliminate these psychological aggregates, when we are able to extract from these sources of temptation the fire that exists in them, we take away from these defects their ability to manifest. Invoking of the power of our Divine Mother for their elimination sees them being consumed. But when these defects start becoming weak, as we observe them, comprehend them, and seek to eliminate them, and repeat that cycle over and over again, the more we can take away, the more consciousness comes to light and comes back to coalesce with itself. I mean, it is important that we see this, that we see the result of our self-observation. Maybe today we judge others because they steal. Maybe we will never steal here, but we would like to steal ideas. Or we will steal time, or we will steal attention, or we will steal emotions from others. When we observe with psychological self-observation, we can see our defects clearly for what they are. And you will notice that there will be no need to feel ashamed. There will be no need to judge yourself or to criticize yourself. There will be no need to justify. As a matter of fact, you will start developing a new flavor for this work. And rather than being consumed by the flavor of life, where we want to constantly continue indulging in the many illusions and fantasies that life gives us, we start trading that flavor of life and embracing this new flavor that is the flavor of the esoteric work. Let's see, for example, this instance. Let's imagine for a second one of those instances when somebody washes their hands, just like the demon of the mind always does. It washes its hands because it's not responsible for anything. The demon of the mind always finds a scapegoat. It always finds a way to justify and blame others. So when somebody washes their hands by saying, for example, I am a good person, I don't steal, I am charitable, I am a good partner, a good husband, a good spouse, I am a good mother, a good father, a good son, I don't kill, I don't steal, I am not after my neighbor's wife or husband, I must be a saint. What the masters tell us is that when we see someone who is so convinced about their virtues that they cannot see any aspect of the dark side of their psychological moon, that these are candidates for the abyss and the second death. As a matter of fact, the masters say these are lost causes. Seeing themselves as superior in such a way, it makes it very difficult for a mind that is crystallized that deep to find an opportunity to learn when it thinks that it already knows everything that there is to know. So let me tell you this. As we start working with this psychological self-observation, you will come to see that envy is one, if not the primary spring of action. Our envy is ill will. It is an evil eye that we set upon the benefits or the advantages or the good opportunities that others have earned because of their work in their own harsh battles. We see in ourselves a desire to improve, not realizing that that is a desire by itself. And we start justifying our ambitions, seeking for opportunities to gain favor, to gain position, to gain prestige. No. We must observe this spring of action that is envy. Every time that we see others thriving and we immediately feel that, whatever that is, as it may manifest for you, observe it. Because everything that we experience here is telling us that there is an aspect of us that must be discovered. And when we see others and we immediately think of issuing that judgment or that criticism, all of those mistakes that exist in others exist deep within us. Taking the opportunity and working with it is what can then move us into the total comprehension of ourselves. This is equivalent to us descending into our own inferior infernos. Being there, able to perceive without judgment, simply for the sake of comprehending, of making the sane use of our creative power to gain that comprehension, empowers us to fill our hands with that sacrifice and offer it for our transformation. And as you start doing this work, we want you to know that every moment of internal work that you practice is going to result in reactions from people around you. This we must know. Because other people around you are not interested in change. People around you, for the most part, they will remain trapped in time. And they will notice that things are changing and they will challenge you by saying, do you remember when we used to do these things? Remember when you used to laugh at these sarcastic comments, at these lewd jokes? Do you remember when we used to make fun of? And because they remain trapped in time, internally, they will have their judgments against you. They will protest and complain that you're no longer fun. Why should we even bother to keep you around? In a way, others will turn against us. And we're here to tell you that if you notice that happens, that is okay. It is impossible for us to exercise an internal transformation, to seek to move into higher, superior levels of being, where with every step that we take, we receive new faculties, new powers, new virtues, new abilities, and still be at par with others who are not interested with the work itself. Moving into higher, superior levels of being will shed from your life inferior influences, and at the same time will open the door to new connections, to new people, to new opportunities, new conditions in life that will continue being auspicious for you to move on with your internal work, with the progress. For this, we cannot rely on moral codes, because moral codes are not designed to eliminate the hidden side of our psychological moon. Moral codes will never transform us. They will give us only a guideline to operate within the existing cultural situation of the people around you. So at some point, you will behave in some ways that people will consider you immoral, because you will be operating at levels and values that are, by definition, superior, and they will not match the inferior values that are part of the moral code that some people enjoy today. Friends, we share this with you because as we bring the light of our consciousness into the dark side of our psychological moon, the constant steps in that sacrifice trace a path for us. And you will notice that it is a very narrow path. This narrow path eventually takes you to other paths along the way. One of them is called the spiral path, in which the practitioner, after much sacrifice, transformation, use of their creative energies, efforts to fabricate what are known as the superior existential bodies of the being, eventually they will have to make a decision if they want to take this spiral path that is known as the path of the Devas. The path of the Devas is that path that takes sincere seekers like you and eventually leads them to transcend the human condition into a superior stage in that evolution of the human consciousness, where they can become leaders of angelic hosts, of departments of nature. There is also a direct path, and the direct path that is known as the wet path. This is the path of the cosmo creators. This is the path that takes the sincere practitioner as a disciple and moves them into the condition of adept, and from there as a master of perfection and eventually a perfect master. These cosmo creators, they work together within the symphonies of the universe to enable more creation within the vastness of creation itself. But there is also a third path. And from this path, whether we choose to continue walking into higher, superior levels of being that is part of that vertical path, there are others who choose to continue their life and continue taking steps within the horizontal path of life that leads them to no change. If things don't change, things will not change. And we know that as humanity, we have proven that we can continue to always make things a little worse for us and for everyone else. So eventually, that last path is the path that leads to the abyss and that leads to a second death. Not as a punishment, but as a necessary activity for expiation, for the consciousness to be purified of all of those inferior creations that it failed to bring to an end by its own efforts. And it is always the Divine Mother, the one responsible for doing this. We can work consciously with our Divine Mother here and now, comprehending our defects, invoking of her so that she can reduce them to a cosmic dust. We can embrace every possible opportunity where we are facing a temptation and strive to work with our Divine Mother so that we can regain that paradise that we lost long ago. Or we can continue without change, consistently in a path that is involutionary in nature. And eventually the catabolic forces of nature will take all of these creations and destroy them for us. That is what is the path of the second death. So our solution at hand is not to remain in the status quo. It is to observe and to drive consistent self-observation. Some people say, man, it would be so easier if I could just live in a cave, if I could just move to a mountain, maybe I can move to a cabin out in the woods and just disconnect from all this crazy. But becoming a hermit is not an option. I mean, humanity is full of defects because the defects that we see out there are reflections of what we have in here. The small groups in which you and I move, exist, and carry our being, these are small groups that are just a representation of that larger whole that is humanity itself. And so our interaction in these small groups are a great gymnasium. The challenges that we have with our neighbors, the challenges that we face at work, the difficulties that we come across at home with our family, there is value behind all of them. So let's seek self-censorship before we start thinking about censoring others. Let's judge ourselves first before we start judging others. Let's accuse ourselves. Let's be severe with ourselves and understand what is at the root of these inferior aspects so that with that comprehension we can see them eliminated by invoking of that fire of Kundalini. This is what every school of regeneration will ask of you. It will ask of you to seek, to observe, comprehend, eliminate, and through the use of that super dynamic of the magic of love to help crystallize everything that once comes together. The bodies, the laws, the virtues, the faculties, the abilities, the powers, all of these things that when they come together, they give shape to that solar, brilliant soul that we are seeking to crystallize. We do not have to look for a perfect humanity. What we need right now is right here within us and within our immediate environment. So let me tell you this. What can we do so that we can bring this light? What things can we start doing now, for now, and what things can we start doing now that will benefit us later so that we can bring light into this side of our psychological moon? The first thing that we can do is called self-evaluation. I mean, you have to ask yourself, am I capable of performing this work? And likely, the answer is going to be yes. Yes, you are. If you are capable of performing this work, assign the right value to the work. Re-evaluate your options. See yourself as you realize that you're capable to perform this work. Assign the right value for it. Learn to develop the taste for the work and disconnect from the overindulgence that is the taste of life today. Once you do that reevaluation, the next thing is affirmation. Remember, affirmation, negation, and conciliation. Next one is affirmation. See this environment around you, the exterior, as a reflection of your interior. When you see someone who's drunk, say, that's me. When you see someone who is being lewd and lustful, say, that's me. When you see someone standing on a podium lying to thousands of people, say, that's in me too. But even as you see that, be charitable. Be serviceable. Make an effort to cultivate a rich internal life. Because with that type of affirmation, making an effort to use of your creative powers to serve others, as you embark in that, you can then fully embrace that second aspect, that is the holy negation. Make an effort to deny the reactions of a negative emotion, because negative emotions are very contagious. If you deny the negative emotion, you are not infecting your environment and the people around you with negative emotions as well. What does that mean to deny these reactions? Don't be giving opinions. Everybody has an opinion, and everyone's opinion is as good as everyone else's. Save your opinions for yourself. Don't give way to your talkative ego. Make good use of the creative power of your word. Be selective in the words that you use, how you use them, for the purpose and the reason that you use them. For your actions, don't give excuses. Accept responsibility for your mishappenings. Learn from them. Make yourself better. Don't judge others. But most of all, do not betray the truth. Make an effort to speak the truth, to say the truth, at whatever the cost. That is the greatest manifestation of the holy negation. And the holy affirmation and the holy negation bring you into the space of conciliation. Learn to cultivate the memory of the esoteric work. Every day, make an effort to sit down comfortably, quietly, in a way that your body is relaxed, that your mind is relaxed, and revisit the events of your day. That exercise of retrospection will help you make conscious all of those things that you did during the day that you did while you were unconscious. And you will start seeing moments. They will start showing up like fleeting images in the screen of your mind, in which you realize that there was something better that you could have done, in which there was something more than you could have done. And as you revisit those events, as you revisit the difficult moments of the day, the difficult conversations, the aggressive moments, the moments of fear, you go over those twice, 3 times over the screen of your mind with no judgment. And you start learning so much about yourself. But you also start empowering the consciousness with that effort that is a sacrifice to fill your hands and again invoke of the power of your Divine Mother to see them eliminated. Eliminate, eliminate, eliminate. Holy affirmation, holy negation, and holy conciliation. This is what I wanted to share with you tonight. We learned this from a 3rd chamber lecture that Samael Aun Weor shared with his advanced students. And that lecture was called The Hidden Side of Our Psychological Moon. Dear friends, this is what we wanted to share with you tonight. This has been The Hidden Side of Our Psychological Moon, or where your light has not reached yet. We must explore the side of our psyche. Thank you, dear friends, for being here with us this evening. May all beings be happy.